In 1994, a farmer in southern Turkey hit something with his plow. He assumed it was just another rock. Limestone hills like this one were full of them. He was wrong. What he'd struck was the tip of a stone pillar, buried for thousands of years beneath a hill called Göbekli Tepe. By the time archaeologists finished uncovering what was underneath, they had a problem. A serious one, because everything they found broke the one rule archaeology had never questioned. Today we're going to look at that problem. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some archaeologists still call Göbekli Tepe the discovery that shouldn't exist. For over a century, the story of civilization followed a simple sequence. First, humans learned to farm. Farming created surplus food. Surplus food allowed people to stop wandering and settle down. Settled populations grew large enough to organize labor. And only then, once agriculture had built stable, structured societies, did humans build monuments. Temples came after farms, that was the rule. Göbekli Tepe breaks it completely. Radiocarbon dating places the oldest structures here at roughly 9600 BCE. That makes this site over 11,000 years old. To put that in perspective, that's more than 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. Older than the pyramids of Egypt by nearly 7,000 years. Older than writing, older than the wheel, older than pottery, and critically, older than agriculture in this region. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers. They had no farms, no permanent villages, no domesticated animals to help haul weight. By every model archaeologists had relied on, a society like this should not have been capable of large-scale construction. And yet here it is. Let's talk about what it actually is. Göbekli Tepe consists of massive circular and oval enclosures, each ringed by towering stone pillars carved in the shape of a T. These aren't small markers. Some of these pillars stand over 5 meters tall. Individual stones weigh as much as 10 to 20 tons. Many are carved with intricate reliefs, foxes, boars, vultures, snakes, scorpions, and abstract symbols whose meaning no one has definitively explained. Some pillars have arms carved into their sides, hands folded near the center, as if the stone itself represents a stylized human or divine figure standing guard over the enclosure. Here's the first question that should stop you. How do you quarry, shape, transport, and raise 10-ton stone pillars without metal tools, without wheels, and without domesticated draft animals? The nearest quarry has been identified a few hundred meters from the main structures. Researchers have found unfinished pillars still partially attached to the bedrock, giving us a rare glimpse of the process in progress. But identifying where the stone came from doesn't answer the harder question. How did they move it? The leading theory involves earthen ramps, wooden sledges, and coordinated teams of dozens, possibly hundreds, of people working in sequence, using rope made from plant fiber and sheer sustained human effort. That theory works. Mathematically, it's possible, but it requires something almost as remarkable as the stones themselves: organization, planning, leadership, the ability to coordinate large groups of people toward a single, non-immediate goal for weeks or months at a time. That kind of social structure was supposed to come after agriculture, after villages, after hierarchy had time to develop. Göbekli Tepe suggests it came first. And there's a second problem hiding inside that first one: logistics. Gathering dozens or hundreds of workers to quarry and raise stone for weeks at a time means someone had to feed all of them. Genetic studies of modern wheat have traced the closest wild ancestor of domesticated einkorn to the mountains just northeast of Göbekli Tepe, remarkably close to the site itself. Some researchers now suspect the two discoveries are connected, that the need to feed large, temporary construction crews may have been one of the very pressures that pushed local populations toward deliberately cultivating wild grain in the first place. If that's correct, agriculture wasn't the cause of monuments like this one. It may have been a consequence of them. Which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if it wasn't farming that built civilization? What if it was something else? A shared belief, a shared ritual, a reason powerful enough to make hunter-gatherer bands cooperate at a scale they otherwise had no reason to. Some researchers now argue the sequence has been backwards all along. People didn't settle down to farm and then build temples. They may have gathered to build something sacred first, and agriculture followed as a way to feed the workers and pilgrims who kept returning. If that's true, religion, or something like it, may not be a product of civilization. It may be the reason civilization began at all. Now let's talk about the second mystery, because this one is arguably stranger than the construction itself. Around 8000 BCE, the people using Göbekli Tepe did something almost no ancient culture did to a sacred site. They buried it, deliberately, systematically. Enclosure after enclosure was intentionally filled in with rubble, broken tools, animal bone, and soil, sealing the pillars beneath tons of debris. This wasn't collapse. This wasn't erosion. Excavation patterns show careful, layered infill consistent with an intentional act. Someone chose to bury this place. Why would a community spend generations quarrying and raising these pillars, only to spend more effort covering them back up? There's no definitive answer. But there are theories, and they're worth sitting with. One idea is ritual closure. In some traditional cultures, a sacred structure is considered to have a lifespan. Once its purpose is fulfilled, or once it's believed to be spiritually full, it isn't abandoned. It's ceremonially retired. Burying it may have been an act of respect, not neglect. Another idea is more practical. As older enclosures filled with debris over time, builders simply constructed newer, smaller circles on top, layer after layer, across centuries. What looks like deliberate burial might partly be the natural accumulation of a site that was rebuilt again and again by different generations. A third, more speculative idea involves the astronomical carvings found throughout the site. Some researchers have proposed that certain pillars may align with specific stars or constellations, and that the timing of construction and possibly burial correlates with celestial events significant to the builders. That theory remains heavily debated within the archaeological community, and it's important to say clearly, it is not proven. But the presence of animal and symbol carvings that appear repeatedly across multiple enclosures suggests a symbolic language we don't yet fully understand. One pillar in particular has fueled this debate more than any other. Archaeologists call it the Vulture stone. Carved into its surface is a vulture holding what appears to be a circular disc above its wing, surrounded by other animal figures and a row of unusual headless human forms. Some researchers have proposed that this carving isn't decorative at all. They argue it may function as a kind of symbolic star chart, possibly recording the position of constellations at the moment of a catastrophic event. A comet impact, some scientists believe, struck Earth around 10,900 BCE and triggered a sudden global cooling period known as the Younger Dryas. Mainstream archaeology remains skeptical of that interpretation. There's no consensus, and many specialists consider it speculative. But the theory persists precisely because no one has offered a more convincing explanation for why this specific combination of symbols appears carved into the oldest known monumental structure on Earth. Whatever the reason, the effect of that burial was accidental preservation on an extraordinary scale. By sealing these enclosures under soil and rubble for thousands of years, the builders of Göbekli Tepe unintentionally protected the site from erosion, looting, and the slow destruction that erased so much of the ancient world. If they hadn't buried it, we might never have found it at all. Here's where the story gets even bigger, because Göbekli Tepe isn't alone. In the years since its excavation began, archaeologists have identified similar sites scattered across the same region of southeastern Turkey. A cluster of hills, now referred to as Taş Tepeler, or stone hills, each showing signs of comparable monumental construction from the same early period. That means Göbekli Tepe wasn't an isolated miracle built by one uniquely ambitious group. It may have been part of a network, a shared tradition spread across multiple communities, all capable of this kind of large-scale, coordinated construction, thousands of years before conventional history says that should have been possible. If that's true, we're not just looking at one anomaly. We're looking at an entire chapter of human history that mainstream archaeology is still in the process of rewriting. Klaus Schmidt, the German archaeologist who led excavations here for nearly 2 decades, once described Göbekli Tepe as a discovery that forced him to question everything he thought he understood about the origins of civilization. He died in 2014, before many of these deeper questions could be resolved. The excavation continues today. Less than 10% of the site has been fully uncovered. 90% of Göbekli Tepe is still underground, still sealed, still waiting. which means everything we've just discussed, the pillars, the carvings, the burial, the theories, all of it is based on a fraction of what's actually there. We don't know what the rest of the site will reveal. We don't know if it will support the current theories or dismantle them entirely. What we do know is this: 11,000 years ago, in a region we once assumed was populated by simple wandering hunter-gatherers, someone organized dozens of people, quarried 10-ton stones, carved them with precise and repeated symbolism, raised them into towering circles, and then, generations later, chose to bury the entire achievement beneath the earth. Every assumption we had about how civilization began had to be revised because of a hill a farmer's plow happened to strike in 1994, which leaves us with the real question. If our entire timeline for the birth of civilization was wrong by thousands of years, what else are we still getting wrong? In our next video, we're going back to that unexcavated 90%, to a nearby site that may hold the answer to the most debated theory about Göbekli Tepe. Whether its builders were tracking something in the sky the night they raised the very first stone,